There are only 4 weeks left in the 2017 NFL regular season, and then it's game on for 12 playoff teams with one goal in mind: reach and win Super Bowl 52 in Minneapolis. Here's how the battle for supremacy stands with a cold month of warm-up left, plus which teams are inching closer to rock bottom. More NFL playoff picture. Week 14 NFL Power Rankings. 1. New England Patriots 102 last week. 2. Go figure, Tom Brady's MVP case is being hurt by their resurgent running game and defense. This week at Dolphins. 2. Pittsburgh Steelers 102 last week. 3. They'll need Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown to keep the offense humming along with the mounting concerns on defense. This week versus Ravens. 3. Minnesota Vikings 102 last week. 4. Case Keenum keeps proving to be the perfect complementary quarterback to their dominant defense. This week at Panthers. 4. Philadelphia Eagles 102 last week. When their weak schedule didn't prepare them well for what happened in Seattle, and now they have to bounce back in another tough NFC West road game. This week at Rams. Steel rest of NFC gaining on Eagles. 5. Los Angeles Rams 93 last week. 5. Sean McVay has all but wrapped up Coach of the Year, while Todd Gurley should be your comeback Player of the Year. This week versus Eagles. 6. New Orleans Saints 93 last week. 6. See Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara run, see the Saints win in familiar fashion again. This week at Falcons. 7. Seattle Seahawks 84 last week. 11. Russell Wilson might actually be getting some help in the running game with Mike Davis, and that defense still has plenty of boom. This week at Jaguars. 8. Jacksonville Jaguars 84 last week. 10. Blake Bortles isn't as bad as you think, and he needs to keep being that way with Leonard Fournette hurting. This week versus Seahawks. 9. Carolina Panthers 84 last week. 7. They're limited on offense around Cam Newton, and they're still limited on defense with few big plays. This week versus Vikings. 10. Tennessee Titans 84 last week. 9. Marcus Mariota needs to play better, but this is a great time for their bread and butter, the running game. This week at Cardinals. 11. Baltimore Ravens 75 last week. 12. Joe Flacco is doing his best not to get in the way of Alex Collins and that defense. This week at Steelers. More Ravens offense to face more pressure. 12. Atlanta Falcons 75 last week. 8. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones went right back to cooling off. It's must-win for the NFC champs now. This week versus Saints. 13. Los Angeles Chargers 66 last week. 18. It's hard to believe they started 0-4, and it's easy to believe they can now steal the AFC West. This week versus Redskins. 14. Detroit Lions 66 last week. 13. There's too much on Matthew Stafford at the moment, and he's not close to 100%. This week at Buccaneers. 15. Green Bay Packers 66 last week. 17. Brett Hundley doesn't get any style points, but luckily, his defense and running game overachieved to save him at home. This week at Browns. How Packers can make the playoffs. 16. Dallas Cowboys 66 last week. 19. Those offensive and defensive lines found their groove again versus the Redskins, and now they need to keep it together for 2 more weeks without Zeke. This week at Giants. 17. Oakland Raiders 66 last week. 20. Marshawn Lynch is embodying the relentless push they're showing in a disappointing, but not totally lost season. This week at Chiefs. 18. Buffalo Bills 66 last week. 14. Tyrod Taylor might have avoided big knee damage, but a turn back to Nathan Peterman will make every win that much harder to get. This week versus Colts. 19. Kansas City Chiefs 66 last week. 15. So their offense with Alex Smith gets out of a slump, only to see their defense stink in every way. What a mess for Andy Reid. This week versus Raiders. Marvez Chiefs simply have no answers. 20. New York Jets 57 last week. 26. Remember when the Jets were a dumpster fire and had no chance with Josh McCown? Neither do we. This week at Broncos. 21. Miami Dolphins 57 last week. 25. Adam Gase took it to the Broncos, getting out all of his frustrations from a weird season of transition. This week versus Patriots. 22. Washington Redskins 57 last week. 16. Kirk Cousins and Jay Gruden are back answering the same offensive questions, but their defensive front seven remains a bigger concern. This week at Chargers. 23. Cincinnati Bengals 57 last week. 21. They had a chance to beat Pittsburgh on Monday night. Now they have little chance to stay in the AFC playoff race. This week versus Bears. 24. Arizona Cardinals 57 last week. 22. Let's hope they're not serious about Blaine Gabbert being an option for franchise quarterback in 2018. This week versus Titans 25. Houston Texans 48 last week 23. Tom Savage has played better, but now their defense is totally falling apart. This week versus 49ers 26. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 48 last week 24. Jameis Winston returned, but their offensive and defensive lines cost them in Green Bay. This week versus Lions 27. San Francisco 49ers 210 last week 31. Jimmy Garoppolo woke up the entire offense in Chicago, living up to his promise right away. This week at Texans 28. Chicago Bears 39 last week 27. Mitchell Trubisky needs a real coach for the Bears to turn this around, a la the Rams and Jared Goff. This week at Bengals 29. Indianapolis Colts 39 last week 29. The Colts are fighting hard, but injuries have further destroyed their void of talent. This week at Bills 30. Denver Broncos 39 last week 28. These Broncos find a new way to be embarrassed every week. This week versus Jets. Are Broncos even worse than Browns? 31. New York Giants 210 last week 30. Sure, firing Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese and unbenching Eli Manning will suddenly solve everything. This week versus Cowboys 32. Cleveland Browns 0-1-2 last week 32. Josh Gordon's return is easily the best thing that has happened for them this season. This week versus